Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Close of Business Tuesday. We're out on the road this week. Before we get to the market stuff, we got to give you a little teaser for what we've been doing. We spent Monday afternoon at Blue Origin, and it was fantastic. This is the crew here with me. Harvin Moore with Frontera. You knew him a long time with Houston Exponential. Mike Bradley. Mike is going to, a piece about, Mike, you're here, and then you're going to do the market update. How good is that? Gary Morris, who leads our energy tech group at TPH, myself, and our fearless leader, Tim Kopra. You know him from MDA and also from his, he's the only one in the crew who's actually left planet Earth and been gone for a while. But anyway, we had a fantastic time. We can't thank the Blue Origin folks enough. So let's get to the market update. And we're going to go first to Colin Fenton. You see, we've got the live shot there. He's racing to the plane. He's been in New York City. I don't know, Colin, did Biden ask you for any comments to his speech before he went to the UN?
I did not get that phone call, sir.
Well, you know, he missed out. What can you tell us about the world, New York City, Climate Week, Biden, traffic, COVID, anything you like, Knish prices? What's going on?
Well, it's great to be back in New York City. As you mentioned, it's Climate Week, and the president was at the United Nations today giving a speech. It's a little bit still in wake-up mode, I would say, New York City, but had a bunch of good meetings. People are raring to get back. And I think, you know, the general response to the president's speech is it's obviously a knee-jerk reaction of politicians worldwide to express alarm anytime an energy price, particularly transportation fuel price, is rising. But look, we all know that, you know, there isn't this phantom boogeyman that's moving these prices around. And I think it was a tactical mistake for not just the American president, but any political leader worldwide to suggest that something nefarious is happening here. It's not true. The politicians know it's not true. More importantly, the consumers know it's not true. And so it would be more politically advisable tactically to just acknowledge that, you know, prices are moving because demand is up and the economy is getting back in gear.
Well, yeah, we could all do a bigger dose of realism, I guess, from our various podiums around the world. Mike, you you mentioned this in the pregame. There's a little bit of the IEA weighed in on this a little bit today. You're obviously watching the screen. What would you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. You know, first of all, you know, I was just looking, you know, before we were going to make this call, and actually it's interesting. FedEx came out with a press release that they're going to miss the numbers, but they're going to be raising prices for packages 6% beginning in 22, and for FedEx Freight about 7%. And if that doesn't speak inflation, I really don't know what speaks inflation. And so that was out. But yeah, you mentioned, and Colin said it, you know, in the last month, you know, let's say the last 4 or 5 weeks, you know, you had Biden basically, you know, asking OPEC to increase production, put oil in the water, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then today you hear the IEA talking about they're pleading for Russia to increase production to Europe, even though Russia is meeting all their demands and all their needs at this point in time. And so they're trying to get them to increase. And so, you know, what's really interesting, the IEA came out today and said that, you know, they're trying to deflect and saying the current EU issues are a result of multiple factors, and it's inaccurate and misleading to basically qualify and say it's a responsibility of energy transition. And like Colin said, everyone realizes that is just false. That's what's happening right now. Just to kind of give you some figures, you know, it came out today, one of the UK's largest storage facilities was shut down in 2017. And if they would have had that facility today, they wouldn't be in the trouble they are today. So a lot of this is related to what's been going on in the energy transition. So look, what we said for the last couple of weeks, and actually the last several months, and I think we're being validated, is that this energy transition is going to be proven to be one of the most inflationary things we've probably seen in the last 20 or 30 years. We're starting to see that. I hope we're not validated, but it seems like that's it's being realized at this point in time. And companies are going to have to basically, trade around that. They're going to have to basically work around that because it's not transitory. It's going to be here for a while. And so we'll just leave it at that.
I mean, the funny thing about this is the price increases are the enemy of the energy transition because it will cause sentiment to turn against it or rise against it. And so if you're trying to accomplish an energy transition, the last thing you want is these all these things that are happening. So it's becoming an enemy of the people who are the strongest proponent of doing it, which is just the irony.
Well, I think the irony too is that, I mean, fossil fuel prices are going up, and you're not going to basically transition to energy faster. I mean, to these renewables faster. You're just going to transition to other fossil fuels right now. And so what you're going to see here is that natural gas and all these other things are really high. One of the lower commodity prices right now is crude oil, and what you're going to see is demand for crude oil is going to pick up because that's the alternative right now. Fuel oil, they're going to move to fuel oil in Europe, and you're going to see crude oil is going to be the beneficiary of that. So give it a couple months and see what happens on the crude oil side. We're probably going to look at it going higher because if you look at right now, natural gas on an equivalent basis and from an oil equivalent basis is literally at like $150 crude oil, given where gas prices are right now. So crude oil is very, very cheap on an equivalent basis. So I would just watch crude oil over the next, through the duration of the rest of this year.
Well, Matt Portillo, why don't we jump to you? I feel like the lead in here has been like a lot of perverse outcomes and a lot of perverse commentary to go with the perverse outcomes. But what do you think? What are you looking at? I know we had a big conference here recently. Talk to us.
Yeah, it's been a really busy 2 weeks for the research team. We posted a RNG 101 slide deck, which has kept our renewable fuels team quite busy with client conversations. And then the renewable fuels team, alongside the banking team at TPH, led a RNG conference, which had over 300 attendants join, which was very well received. We've seen a lot of interest from the buy side on this topic and industry participants as well. As we start to see this business grow out, whether it's landfill gas or dairy digesters, there's just a lot of opportunity to tackle the space moving forward. And alongside that, I think one of the kind of key discussion points has been the LCFS market and how that may evolve over the next 12 to 24 months. Unfortunately, we do have a fairly negative view on LCFS prices in the short term, but we do think it's going to be very supportive over the medium to long term as those programs expand. So just going to be a lot of volatility in the space, but there's a lot of interest, and the team continues to tackle this topic alongside renewable diesel, which is very topical for us as well. The midstream team this morning put out a capital allocation piece, which was very well received. A lot of interest in the midstream sector at the moment. A little bit different from what we're seeing in the upstream space. The upstream space has evolved, I think, more quickly on balance sheet reduction and balance sheet repair than midstream players. And ultimately, what we're seeing from clients is really an interest in maintaining the current dividend yields, not spending a lot of capital on growth projects, and really working down the debt loads. And that's what the piece addressed, and it's really where we think investor sentiment is shifting right now. And then lastly, the upstream team has been spending time catching up with our coverage names. I think it's going to be a great Q3 for the space. Inflation still seems to be fairly benign from a service cost perspective. A lot of operators are truly buying into the broader conversation of return of capital. Actually hearing a number of industry participants starting to see yield investors show up into the sector, which is kind of an interesting and new conversation. And then buybacks have been very well received, and we've seen some leaders announcing buybacks that have been getting very solid reception from buy-side clients. So for us, I think it's going to be a great setup in the Q3 and Q4 timeframe. We're going to see more and more announcements on this front, and it's just going to be a positive tailwind for the sector. And then lastly, the research team is going to be on the road. A couple of us we're calling this today in New York. We're headed out to Boston. So hopefully we'll have some interesting insights as we get back from meeting clients in person. It's great to get out there and actually see people and shake some hands with social distancing still in place.
Fantastic. Well, that's all great work. We really appreciate everything you guys are doing, Matt. Okay, now we've got this is the everybody should buckle in because we had the intro out in Van Horn, and now we got the market update. Now we're going to go back to downtown Van Horn. You're going to hear some of our initial impressions. You'll hear in particular, besides Mike and me, you'll hear Tim Kopra, great friend, astronaut, space guy. We love Tim. And then we're going to come back here and get some comments from this group. So let's go to Van Horn right now. Here we are back in Culberson County, just still heady, have a heady feeling from our Blue Origin trip. We have made it though to Boots and Scoops downtown, and so we're out of the heat and we're reflecting on it. And I'm with Tim Kopra and Mike Bradley. Guys, that was just stunning. Of course, you know, the landscape is incredible. It's just absolutely, we all know what some of those West Texas landscapes look like, but you know, the facilities, the people, they've been at it for a long time. I mean, Tim, you're in the space business and you were an astronaut. What were your takeaways from seeing all that?
I thought it was super impressive. The fact that they had their own launch capability and then a whole series of different test facilities there, kind of blown away. And I'm really happy that it's in Texas.
And what they say about not quite 300 people.
Yeah, about 300 people. Some are living around here. Some come in a few weeks at a time.
Yeah, it seemed like, I thought the area where the people come and stay the night before their launch, I mean, that was quite cool. There were so many things that were cool, but.
Yeah, like what Maynard is talking about is for this commercial astronaut business that they've started. They had the first humans in space on one of their vehicles. They have Airstream set up, so that's where they spend the night before they go out. I guess they come in about 3 days in advance, get wined and dined, live in Airstream.
I mean, they did say when Bezos went up, you know, it was just what they say, like 750 people. The whole world's press was here. It was pretty incredible. What'd you think, Killer?
You know, the interesting thing to me is that when you go to NASA in Houston or you go to, you know, Cape Canaveral, to just the sheer mass of how big it is, and coming here to see how it's very modular, how you can really make that work commercially, which is pretty stunning to me. Fantastic. The other thing I thought was really interesting, which kind of can feed into what's going on in the markets right now, is that, you know, we kept hearing about lack of helium, you know, lack of hydrogen, LOX, which is a new term for me, liquid oxygen, just getting those materials because of shutdowns or whatever, you know, logistics. It's a real issue for them. We're seeing that, you know, play out across Europe right now. So it was very interesting to see that playing out here at home, you know, amongst a company that's like at the cutting edge of technology.
When they were going through, so their rockets are powered by hydrogen. I guess when we went to SpaceX, they're using liquid methane, right? But when they were going through all those, you know, use of helium, use of hydrogen, use of liquid oxygen, you know, it kind of felt like a chemical company or a refinery. Like it felt very much like what we do as an industry. It'd be exciting to see if oil and gas gets more involved in space.
It would be neat to see that intersection for sure.
The people were great.
Yeah.
Oh, man, so gracious. Yeah.
And they had a lot of the issues that we saw though with when we were down in South Texas, SpaceX, just, you know, the local facilities, you know, all these people moving in, how do you get your spouse or significant other, all their sort of life in the frontier kind of stuff.
Yep.
But it did sound a lot like oil and gas, right? Like you're at a remote location, you're bringing in all these people and you got to house them, feed them, entertain them, give them a life.
Exactly. All the issues that you see out in Midland really kind of are going on here, but at a bigger scale, you know, more grander scale, and if you ask me, because it's just not as developed. And so all the logistics issue, just the people issues, you know, just having the average Kroger or whatever here that's just non-existent. It's going to take some time to build that up, but you know what? It's exciting. It's going to happen.
You know, one thing, Tim, I think you could help people understand better is when you understand this as just, you know, like a shot on goal and kind of an interesting thing, you have one view of it. But when you understand, hey, this is an industry for the next, you know, that's growing for the next decade or two, you get a different feel for the jobs, the infrastructure, the possibilities. You mind just giving folks a feel for like the space industry that's coming and how big it might be?
Yeah, for sure. So we did see a piece of it today. The part that I thought was intriguing was that this wasn't just about launching people for for a suborbital flight, essentially, check the block, go to space, but they're doing testing for their advanced engines. And along with that, that means that they're going to be much more powerful engines, much more powerful rockets, bigger payloads. And this all has to work together. If you look at Blue Origin, who we saw today, they have facilities in Florida, Alabama, Colorado, and Texas. So there's an entire supply chain associated with this, and an industry that's really growing. So it'd be great to see how Texas really can expand on that.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. Now, you said we feel really lucky. We've been to SpaceX, now we've been to Blue Origin. You said we got to go to McGregor.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell folks what's in McGregor.
So SpaceX has a facility there. They do engine testing. There may very well be some engine manufacturing there. So, I think those are really good building blocks. Even in Houston, we have Intuitive Machines. We have Axiom Space. So there is a growing industry in all of Texas, really.
I think the thing we're going to have to get the word out on, and TPH wants to help with, is just the however the state can lean into kind of helping with the infrastructure issues. It's very much like a Midland discussion, but right. How they can help with roads and schools and all the things that will help. And water was one that kept coming up today. Power, the issues around clean, reliable power were really pretty fascinating. But it's just remarkably reminiscent of
no doubt
what we've seen across oil and gas country. What's your main takeaway from today, Tim? Biggest, I can't believe that, or wow, or
I think that it really struck home that this is really just a piece of their bigger picture.
Yeah.
That there's lots of testing going on out here, and the fact that it sounds as if Blue Origin is re-enthused by their success with launching people into space, and it's going to continue to grow. And we heard stories about additional projects being funded, so there's a lot more to come. I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, the potential scale that they talk about in terms of number of flights and frequency of flights, this seemed like a small percentage of what's coming.
No, I think so. They were talking about a flight a week for this suborbital flight, so we'll see.
Mike, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is that
cold today. I noticed you were.
Yeah, I'm sweating profusely right now.
There's rattlesnakes out there.
Exactly.
It's out in the wild.
Exactly.
The launch pad was so cool.
Exactly. It's very remote, for one thing, and number one. Number two, what amazed me is that some of the people that we met today have been there 12 and 13 years. And for most people, they haven't heard of Blue Origin much more than a year, 12, 18 months, maybe max. Some of these guys have been devoting their lives for the better part of 10 or 11 years. And they basically, they were drawn into the dream, and now it's kind of playing out. So that's pretty exciting to see that.
The other part about it, what did they say? Blue Origin itself is not quite 20,000 acres in the middle of the Bezos land holdings. So the issues with... they're not on federal or state land. They're self-contained, and I guess that has its advantages. And
yeah, they can control their own destiny, to be honest with you. Yeah.
They talked about people coming out to watch. That sounds like a fascinating thing.
It'd be great to watch.
But the other thing that sounds fascinating is coming here and investing in the community. We saw this in Brownsville. As this thing grows, there will be so much need for so many other things. It's going to be an incredible investment environment.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that came across to me is just some of the people there that are invested in just the school board and just the government. I mean, they're really involved with the whole town. The town's only 2,000 people big, and how many people, he said, roughly 300 people are at the company. So they really are actively involved, and they're going to have to be actively involved to really grow this town, because it's going to need a lot.
Yeah, that was a great takeaway. Yeah, and one of the cautionary tales of this town, having been at a crossroads and having companies come in and then come back out again. I think the thing that was really good to hear today was this is here for the long term.
Well, we're, you guys mentioned it, but we're in Van Horn, which is in Culberson County.
Right here.
And there you go, right there. Fantastic. And, but that was striking in Brownsville. You have SpaceX, which was, not quite 2,000 people. And then Brownsville itself is, I think, 125.
A little bit more, maybe.
A little bit more than that. So this is smaller, but as a percent, the impact is so huge.
No doubt.
Well, we recommend you come to Van Horn. We recommend you come to Boots and Scoops. It's fantastic here. I'm kicking off a keto diet. I think they actually have something that's keto approved.
Well done.
Well, it's only day one, Tim. So anyway.
Got to start someplace.
Well, Tim, we sure appreciate you. Tim has been so good reaching out and setting these things up. He's becoming the unofficial space friend of TPH, and it's just good to get you away from the desk, particularly today.
Exactly.
Not a good day.
Ugly day out there.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody, and thanks again to everybody at Blue Origin. We had a fantastic time. Okay, awesome. So that was us yesterday in Van Horn. We really loved it. We love the Boots and Scoops people. We're going to go see them every time we're in town. Let me introduce Gary Morris. Gary was also with us yesterday. He's part of our energy tech team here at TPH. Gary, reflecting on yesterday, what did you observe, think? What were you struck by? I mean, it was an unbelievable tour that we got of a really unique part of the world.
Absolutely, no question, Maynard. I guess I went in thinking, what are the obstacles they face, and I was thinking about the vacuum of space, the certainly all the hazards of operating in space, and what I came away with is also there's an equal balance of problems right here on Earth. They have the whole problem of getting industrial gases to this location in sufficient quantities to support their operations. With the pandemic, there's a shortage of liquid oxygen. That's impacting the ability to do tests and perhaps even full-scale operations. They have both the Methalox and the Hydrolox engines there at Blue Origin. We got to see the test facilities of those. Here you have this very high-tech system set up in the remote West Texas. The logistics necessary to make all that work were impressive, and I think that's probably the most important thing that I saw yesterday when I was there.
The people, I was really struck by just the people are rugged, nice, science-minded. It was really so enjoyable. It's everything you think about. It is a West Texas aerospace sandwich. Gary, you were CFO at Halliburton, so you know about operating in remote areas and creating temporary camps or temporary settlements or that type of thing. Anything in that category strike you about it?
Absolutely. As I was listening to their problems, I was thinking back on how do you get large amounts of family and workers in a location where you can feed them properly, where you can house them properly, where you can go work and then leave or reduce the size of your operation and not leave a damaging imprint on the local economy and the local people. They're going to be there for a long time in Van Horn and the surrounding areas. And I was really stricken by how important it was to the Blue Origin folks to make sure that they supported the local economy, to make sure that they brought to there as many resources as they could, and not blow them up into a system that destroys the very essence of what makes them strong. I was also taken by exactly the same thing I saw at Halliburton all those years, an ability to piece together and put together what's necessary to make it happen. A lot of times you can't get exactly what you want when you're in a situation like that. And it was quite impressive to see the facility there and just how they were operating this high-tech system in such a remote location.
Don't you think, Gary, I'm going to lead the witness a little bit here, but I was struck by, so you have remote operations, you have all these gases, gas handling, fueling, you have industrial activity. The whole thing just felt like a cousin of oil and gas at some level, and the possibility that oil and gas and space. I know you spend a lot of time thinking about just technology. Don't you sort of see an oil and gas role here, or an energy role certainly, or a energy of the future role in the space business?
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing that is a certainty is when we talk about industrial gases, they come from somewhere. They come from a lot of the same processes that we use in the energy industry. When you talk about the amount of energy it takes to lift a vessel like a spaceship into space, orbit with the payload, all of that takes a tremendous amount of energy. And I think that all the tools that we have in the oil and gas industry are well honed to support a space mission like we have here in Texas now and going forward. No question.
So Gary, I know one of your true loves in life, besides Mrs. Morris and puns, is hydrogen. And they clearly they're using hydrogen to fuel those rockets out there. At SpaceX, we heard it was liquid methane, but any takeaways on hydrogen or any latest? I know if I say the H word, you get excited.
Absolutely. I think that, you just have to look at energy density and look at the energy density that's available in hydrogen. And you've got to know that in the long run, that's where we're going to find the solution for clean energy going forward. I think there'll be a lot of other supporting actors in that role, but there's no question in my mind that hydrogen will be the future for the way we will have a renewable source of very clean energy. The hydrogen, I did like the fact that at Blue Origin they support both the methane and the hydrogen based engines. So I think that's probably good on their part, as well as supportive of the fact that when it comes to hydrogen, you're not going to get anything cleaner. There's a lot of technology, as you've heard me whine on and on in the hallways here at TPH, out there with how hydrogen will be produced, and I think that we're on the cusp of seeing great things for the hydrogen economy that we all would like to see save us from some of the ills that we have in our world today.
Well, it seems like what's obviously going to happen in this new space industry is what happened in the original space industry. Is tons of innovation is going to come out of it as you start solving some of the problems that they're facing. I hope we get another. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, we've seen that very much so with over the years with the inventions that have come from NASA projects, and now we just especially are blessed here in Texas to have the space projects that we have going on, and I think that's going to benefit the state as well as the rest of the world.
Well, we probably should have had a glass of Tang during this broadcast. But Mike Bradley, thinking back on yesterday, any reflections you've had? And then Colin, let me ask you, I want to ask you what you're thinking about all this space stuff too. But Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I would reiterate what Gary said. I mean, just the logistics and the ability to get industrial chemicals out there to support the operation, that was just pretty glaring. But the other thing for me, it was just, when you think back about and look at how big NASA was, how big, the Cape is, and all the stuff that goes around with that, and just going out here, it's very modular, very small, but you're able to basically do it on a budget that's much less than the U.S. government did it with, and so I think that gives a lot of hope for others that are looking to do this. And so to me, it just was amazing how small the operation was and how they were able to go ahead and get a vehicle in space in such a cheaper and more timely fashion. I think that's just going to set the bar, the standard going forward.
Well, Colin, you've been hearing all our space madness. We got to get you on one of these trips. But any observations as you've been hearing all the commentary?
Yeah, well, I'd say that Mike, Matt, yourself, myself, we've talked about inflation for so many months, 16 months on, and sky high prices are clearly on the front page of every media channel in the world. So it begs the question, why are we talking about space? You know, what's the relevance? And I think it's important that we all remember that it's about human innovation and sky-high ambitions, and to remind us, as Gary pointed out, that innovation breeds innovation, ambition breeds ambition, technology breeds technology, and the optimism that goes towards that, pushing the frontier and technology, is super important. And we're going to need to invest across infrastructure. We all know it. And that's why I think, you know, that we're all on the same side here. And so being in New York this week, you know, watching the climate talks begin, the takeaway, the point is, it's not about one gasoline price or a power price or a gas price. It's that we need to get the innovation for tomorrow, and it's going to take all of us.
Well, that's a great place to wrap up. I think if I was adding anything, it's like we're on a tour of dislocation, you know, because it can come from supply chains, it can come from technology, it could come from government policies, it can come from some unforeseen event, it can come from COVID. Like we are in the era of dislocation, but let's enjoy it. Anyway, thank you, Gary, for joining. Thanks to all of you. We had kind of a casserole of videos here for you today, but we had a great time, and we look to be doing more stuff on technology, including space. So thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.